Howdy. My name's Katie and welcome to Prompted, the official podcast for the Write and Prompt section of Reddit.com, where you are prompted to write stories, and here we showcase the best of them, all with the goal of helping each other to become better writers. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 16 of Prompted. As you can tell by the banjos and the southern accent in the beginning, we're doing a little bit of a country theme today. I call it Southern Comfort, if you will. I'm actually starting us out with one of the stories that I'm reading today. The prompt is, an abandoned town has been discovered deep in the remote Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Only you know why it was really abandoned. The story was written by Master Blaster 98. Springfield, M1903, fitted with a telescopic lens. The wood of the butt and lower handguard had started to splinter and warp, but the beauty of the bolt-action design lay in its simplicity. The mechanical part still operating just fine, even as the wood rotted around it. My father carried this rifle in World War II. It might not have been my first choice for a weapon, but with a felony conviction in my past, my selections were limited to what I could steal and what the black market salesman had to offer, or my father's war souvenirs. I carried the rifle in my hands as I walked. More than a walk, actually. I was hauling ass up the slope of the mountain, jagged and winding. I had maybe 50 pounds of gear on my back, plus the rifle, and gravity tugged at me, a palpable force, sucking me down the hill as I resisted and climbed upwards. A Snickers wrapper up ahead, a little flag of color in the dirt. I looked down on it and used the barrel of the Springfield to turn it over. The wind caught it and took it. I watched it flutter and disappear. So, they had come this way. The path I followed hardly counted as a trail at all, virtually invisible from the side of the little used highway where it began. So overgrown in parts, one might start wandering any which way. It seemed that they had found the trail and kept to it, though. Not that surprising, considering that the discovery of the town had popped into the news recently, and the intrepid hiker who discovered it provided a detailed account of what he found, including markers for the trail itself. Judging by the Fish and Vanderbilt bumper stickers, they were college students. 3, I estimated. At least 3 distinct sneaker prints in the mud, but maybe 4. Sneaker prints. That told me enough about their level of expertise on the world beyond the rim of civilization. I was surprised they had gone this far without turning around, that they had managed to follow the barely existent trail in the first place. I paused for a minute. The day began as a cool October morning, but the world had heated considerably. Now it felt more like an Indian summer. I laid the rifle beside me, sat on a rock, and drank from my canteen. I had no idea how much farther ahead of me they were, but I was going to kill myself if I didn't stop for a moment. I stared down the slope, covered with fallen leaves. The foliage was too thick to see the highway snaking through the trough of the mountains. I mopped the sweat streaming down my face with my shirt and stood up. Human voices. I heard them before I saw them, laughing. I was right. They were college kids, or thereabouts in age. 3 of them. They were retracing the trail. Even though they laughed and talked, they looked worn out. beaten to hell by the incline and the unexpected heat. I grabbed the rifle and held it loosely in one hand, waiting until they saw me. The girls screamed and they froze in their tracks.
"Howdy,"
I said.
"You folks go and check out the town?"
"Jesus, man, you scared the hell out of us," one of them said. He took the baseball cap off his head and ran a hand through his wet hair. They looked like the stoner-type college kids, the intellectual offspring of hippies, their t-shirts and jeans streaked with mud. I knew they were staring at the bad side of my face, the scarred half.
"Sorry, didn't mean to,"
I said, even though that's exactly what I came up here to do.
"How was it?"
The town?" one of them said. "We didn't get to it." They stared at me.
"That's a good thing. Trust me,"
I said.
"I happen to be hunting around here myself. You gotta be careful if you're coming up here. Quite a few people go hunting up here, and it'd be goddamn shame if a stray bullet hit one of you, all the way up here, so far from the road. I can pretty much guarantee you won't get cell phone signal up here."
I felt them looking at the rifle in my hand. I let that sink in for a minute.
"And that's not the only reason why you shouldn't be up here. I saw that segment they did on the news about that guy who discovered it. That's a load of bull. A lot of people around here know about it. No one will tell you about it, but they know. It's not safe to go up there. They don't talk about it because they don't want to encourage people to go up there."
What's so dangerous about it?"
You might not believe this, but there's a lot of mines and traps around there. Big steel bear traps and even some explosives. You know the people who lived up there tried to secede from the Union. Heh! Obviously that didn't work out, but they were preparing to fight the Second Civil War. Also, this is probably less surprising to you, but there's been more than a few busts in these woods. You know, meth labs and such. I don't know this for a fact, but the way I heard it, that little town might not be abandoned. Maybe they got a little camp around there. I can't vouch for that personally, but I know a fella who got his leg caught in a bear trap, and that's a fact.
All three of them went pale as I talked, their eyes drifting from the bad half of my face to the gun and back again. Good, I thought. That's all I wanted. Scare the living crap out of them. "Well, we were just heading back down," one of them said. "Yeah, we didn't see nothing. We're just on our way home now." I had to stop myself from grinning, like a bunch of little kids.
"Well, that's probably for the best. Sorry if I scared you. Didn't mean to. But be careful around here, you know? If you guys are looking for a good place to go hiking, there's plenty of state parks around here, where hunting ain't permitted."
They left, shuffling carefully around me and heading back down the slope, no longer laughing. I sat there for a long while, relieved and content. They had gobbled up that load of horse shit willingly enough. All that talk about bear traps and mines and the secret meth lab operations? Hell, those were true in part, but tangential to the real issue at hand. It'd be best to keep people from going exploring too far, lest they find something else up here. That thought sent a shiver straight through me despite my relief, despite the Indian summer heat. God forbid someone find the town and what lay beyond it, even farther in the woods. The nameless thing. The one that demanded tribute. Those would-be rebels. The instigators of the Second Civil War. That part of the story was also true. And they had learned quickly enough that the tribute they had to pay to the creature was high and dear, payable only in blood. That thought reminded me that as I sat here, letting my thoughts roam, the sun was already tilting towards the west. I had to remind myself that the days had started to grow short as of late. I shouldered my rifle and started back down, glad that I hadn't fired it, glad that the kids had gone back down in one piece. I walked fast, looking over my shoulder as I went. That story got a little bit creepy, didn't it? Well, don't worry, I've got something to cheer you up. Here we have a story that Brap is reading. The prompt is, due to an angel's clerical error, the Four Horsemen are summoned to compete in the Kentucky Derby. Their efficiency is called into question when they all come in dead last. The story was written by DocOccupant.
There's an angel for everything. Technically, the angel of a word is supposed to be quite important. But with the rise of humanity, there'd been a proliferation of words, and all of a sudden the need for a whole new strata of angels. Hence the existence of Brian, the angel of the committee structure. Brian tried, he really did. Every time the angelic host needed a meeting sorting out, every time the word agenda entered a conversation, there he was, with notepad in hand and a helpful expression on his face. His existence was a steady continuum of meeting minutes and action lists, and nothing had really prepared him for facing the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. They were technically angels, in the same way that an explosion is technically just practical maths. "Be that as it may," said Brian in response to a virulent comment from Pestilence about the intelligence of the person responsible for entering them in the derby in the first place. "And rest assured, we are pursuing the root cause of that error, and are committed to real change in a total quality environment." "Mistakes have been made," said War. "Others will be blamed." Brian didn't want to look at War. War was currently an 8-year-old African child toting an AK-47 taller than he was. War was also chewing an unlit Churchill cigar. "It doesn't alter the reason for this inquiry," said Brian. He adjusted his spectacles. Brian didn't need to wear them. Like all angels, his eyesight was perfect. But they'd turned up on his nose one morning, and now he felt incomplete without them. "The fact is, you were entered in the race, and showed a complete lack of horsemanship. Watching you lot plod sedately around the track was, I'm told, embarrassing. Not that I saw it. I believe I was running the off-and-in mileage subcommittee at the time." The horsemen looked at one another. "You're not a bad person," said Famine. "Believe me, we'd know if you were. So well be gentle." Famine had come dressed as a man-sized locust. Brian was pretty sure they were doing this deliberately, to irritate him. "Just think," bubbled Pestilence, "about who we are and what we're supposed to do." "You ride," said Brian, "which is sort of implied in the name Horseman. But if you don't ride very well, what does that say?" Normally the presence of pens and tables made Brian feel comfortable and secure. But at the moment all the pens seemed unnaturally sharp, and he was far too aware of how empty the table was. "It says you've missed a bit," said War. Brian frowned and flicked through his notes. "I'm sorry, I don't think so," he said. "Which bit?" Pestilence dripped, burst slightly, and leaned forward on his elbows, which crackled and popped alarmingly. "Of the apocalypse," he oozed. Brian nodded. "Yes, but that doesn't really help me explain why you all came last." War cocked his AK and spat his cigar onto the floor. "Where are they finding you people these days?" he stormed, jumping up onto the desk and looming over Brian. The raw firmament?" babbled Brian. "There's only two kinds who come from the raw firmament," snarled War. "Seraphim and Nephilim, which are you?" Technically just an angel, said Brian. War plopped himself on Brian's lap. Thing is, Brian, the bit you're missing is that we're the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. If we ride, the world ends. Did we have an apocalypse scheduled? No, we didn't. So recognizing that entering us was an almighty cock-up, but triggering the apocalypse would be an almighty cock-up, we decided not to ride. Let's face it, said Famine. Sauntering gently around the track isn't going to trigger anything but light scuffles, sneezing, and a run on the hot dog stand. Brian turned to Death. Is this what you're all saying? No, said Death. Oh? Said Brian. I always come last. Force of habit, really. Thank you, gentlemen, said Brian. Meeting adjourned.
Those Four Horsemen are quite the characters, aren't they? Good to see that Death gets the last word, though, huh? Now we've got a story read by Giglomesh. The prompt is a little bit more open. It is short story about a cowboy. The story was written by Calubedy.
Shadow and Smoke are my only companions in the wastes. Out here you can walk for days without sign of civilization, or a conversation with another beating heart. The dust is oppressive, but at least it helps with the sun, beating down harder than the sledges driving the railroad ever on. One day, it'll reach the Pacific, if you'd believe that. I've seen the Pacific, and it's no place for railroads. Keep 'em out west is what I say. Leave the wilds alone. I made friends with the buffalo out here. They're almost as smart as horses, you know. I love horses, so much I won't ride 'em. They deserve their freedom more than the people do. Never tried to take slaves or kill people over lines in the sand. People could learn a lot from them. I tried to. I hopped on the train easy enough and got off when it stopped the next day. Nobody notices one more drifter in town, and I like to keep it that way. I made my way to the saloon in the middle of town and sat at the bar. "What'll you have?" the barman asked, hesitant. Guess he'd never seen a free man before. Maybe it was the guns. Good steel, good lead. Seen me through more trouble than I'd like to remember back east, and more than I can forget out in the wastes. "Whiskey and water, separate glasses," I answered. Water that didn't taste like metal was my treat. Whiskey, because it was expected from a new face in a small town. I could sip whiskey all night, but I couldn't hold back from sweet water. Horses like water more than whiskey, too. Guess I learned it from them. The barman set my glasses down in front of me. The bar shone like gold, polished every day by dutiful hands. You could trust a bar like that. Showed people here weren't desperate. Didn't like desperate towns. Folks always ask questions that I'd rather not answer. Guess hungry people thirst for a fight. "What brings you to town?" he asked, almost sincerely. "Train." "Well, why'd you stop here? What makes Pleasant Strike a good place to get a drink?" "Train stopped here. I was thirsty." "Suit yourself, buddy." He strolled down the bar to talk to some men who looked like miners. Guess they were locals. Miners don't tend to go very far. I listened in. Their conversation was as dull as the wastes, devoid of meaning until... "Well, he got himself a new Injun girl. Doesn't seem pleased about it, but she sure is pretty. Heard he has to keep her locked up so she don't run." Sounded like an opportunity to me. I stood, adjusted my hat, and walked over. I twisted my hips a little so some light flashed off my guns. That got their attention. "Who are you?" the bigger one asked. Black beard, black hair, big arms. Probably swung a pick all day. "Just a stranger. Heard you mention a local girl. Who is she?" The little one with the lazy eye answered.
Marcus's new engine? Dunno. Seen her once over at the Shenandoah. Maybe he'll have her wait tables once he's broken her.
I put my money at the bar and walked out into the setting sun. Small town like this don't take long to find a place with a name on it. Shenandoah was the name of the hotel. Real nice. Guess the mines produced enough gold for people to spend it here. I walked in and heads turned. Guess people like me didn't come in here. All the eyes on me sat between suits and fancy hats. People wearing fancy clothes don't take too kindly to freemen, you know. I sat at one of the card tables, tried to act nice. Won and lost a few hands. Heard enough talk to know I wasn't welcome. I bought a room. The guy selling them looked like he wasn't used to sunlight. You own the place, kid? I know he didn't, but a little flattery can get you a long way.
No, sir, that's Mr. Jorgen. Top floor, owns most of the town. I just work for him. Most people do. He even owns the mines. I came out here thinking I'd strike gold, but he don't want anyone else getting rich off the mine.
Kid kept talking. Guess he didn't get much attention. I understood why. Motor mouths don't make too many friends, you know. Talk too much, listen too little. Good source of information, though. I learned that Marcus Jorgen was a real bastard. Kept everyone in town under his boot heels. Gave him just enough money they wouldn't complain too loud. Roughed him up enough they didn't talk back. Had him 2 carnival strongmen working security. Killed a miner once when he asked for more money on account of hitting a rich vein. Locals didn't think it was an accident, but knew better than to talk. I took my key and slid the kid a few dollars. His eyes went wide like the sky, and he stammered a moment. Don't tell the boss about me.
Of course not, sir. My lips are sealed tighter than a bank.
Thanks, kid. I went to my room and unpacked my bag and polished my guns. I planned to use them tonight. Each one had a name and a story. Mercy was an elegant 6-gun stolen from my master, may he rot in hell. Left him alive, how she earned her name. The other slaves, freemen ever after, did him in with sticks. Not my problem. Mercy was covered in silver filigree and shot straight. She rode on my left hip. Freedom I bought after my first robbery, only 5 chambers in her. Symbolized my agency as a freeman. He's an ugly gun, shoots small rounds though. Stays in my pack most nights, but I slipped him into my boot. Luck was a 2-shot gambler's gun, won on a desperate bet. I wasn't sober then, didn't know how to learn from horses until later. The gambler's now a casino owner in Atlantic City. Dropped in once and he greeted me like a friend. Kept Luck with my tobacco. Guess I wanted a little security rolling one with my back to the door. Stuck her in my back pocket. Thunder was a gift from a Cherokee chieftain. A real big gun for a big man like him. He taught me to learn from the horses and move like a tumbleweed. I killed a few soldiers to earn his trust. When I rolled out, he gave me a parting gift. She went into my right holster. Justice was my favorite. Inherited from a friend. He died knocking off a bank, but I made it out with the money. Still lived off it today. No need to work anymore. Now I just walk the waste, and on nights like this, I dispensed justice. I kept her in my hand when I went to the door. The stairs were empty. Guess the night was still young. I went up to the 4th floor, only one door, right on the landing. I tested the door. No use breaking it down and letting everyone know what I was up to if it was unlocked, you know. It opened easy to my surprise. Guess caution pays off, or maybe it was luck in my pocket. I walked into one of the nicest rooms I'd ever seen. Nicer than the Plantation Manor. Marcus must have had real money tied up here, and someone else was tied up. She sat in a big armchair facing the door. Her ankles were tied to its legs.
You're not Marcus.
she said, more for herself because I already knew that. Correct. You want to stay here?
A little. Got my hands free.
She gestured at the rope on her lap.
And I want to strangle that bastard when he comes in tonight.
I was gonna shoot him.
Can I do it instead?
Sure. You got a name?
Swift Deer, but they call me Dearie around here. Stupid.
Swift Deer undid her ankles with the speed you gain through years of work.
Give me a gun.
I handed her freedom. Guess it seemed fitting. She started talking to me like I was a friend. Guess I was in that moment.
My father is gonna destroy this whole town. He would burn the whole damn continent down if he knew what happened.
So what happened?
Met Marcus. He seemed nice. Fancy city ways and all. Asked me to come with him, and I did. Tried to make me a whore once we got here. He's probably down there right now, beaten or screwing. Maybe both.
Why were you tied up in here?
Bit a man when he put it in my mouth. Marcus said he was gonna break me like a horse.
I felt the hairs on my neck rise. Bastards like him deserved a slower death than I could give. Guess I had no patience, but I knew there would be no mercy tonight. You can do more than bite now. She checked the chamber.
Oh, I know. He's not gonna see the day again.
We stopped to collect my pack and then left through the parlor. One man rose to stop us, but I pulled the hammer back on Justice, and he sat back down. You won't remember us, I called before closing the door. Swift Deer led me off Main Street and into the dark. We came to a house, like any other, and she pushed the door open. A big man sat at the desk, and he pulled out a shotgun the moment we walked in. I put a bullet between his eyes, and then stepped behind the counter to put out the light. Smoke and Shadow, my closest friends, greeted me. I motioned for Swift Deer to put out all the other lights dotting the parlor, and she made quick work of it. It took a few seconds for there to be footsteps on the stairs, guess for them to put on their pants. Another muscled brute galloped into the room, and I fired the shotgun at him. He roared, but kept running. Guess it was for show, 'cause I got taken in a full tackle. He punched me and I saw a flash of white and felt a lightning bolt of pain. Swift Deer shot him, but I knew my nose was broke good, and I had to jam a tooth back in. Hurts like hell, worse than having it knocked out. Then Marcus entered. Blonde, tall, and weak, he held a big damn shotgun under his arm. I was still behind the counter when it happened, but Swift Deer just walked straight at him. He shot twice, but she kept walking. He was scared, no doubt in my mind. She bled all over the floor, but kept walking. Strength of the dead, you know. Guess she wasn't ready to give up. Put the gun between his eyes, and he was frozen.
Goodbye,
she sputtered. Boom. His head painted the wall. I got the hell out, hopped on the train. Didn't even take my gun. Guess it was really hers now. Freedom comes in more than one way, you know. For me, it was the open wastes. For her, killing a bad man before she died.
Sad ending to that one. At least in the end, she got what she needed, and he got what he deserved. Well, it's time to lighten the mood up a little bit. I've got another one read by me. The prompt is, aliens finally visit us, but all they know, language included, comes from the farmers and rednecks they abducted. Now they bring peace offerings. This story was written by Writing Prompt's own M.N. Bryan. Clarence and Daryl exited their spaceship, shirtless, holding shotguns, and wearing overalls. Their scrawny gray bodies and oversized bald heads with giant black eyes looked particularly unusual in the chosen attire. They'd landed near the center of the Pentagon, mimicking their best human walk, a slumped swagger with poor posture. It never made sense to Clarence why humans all had such poor posture. It had taken them nearly a decade to get it right, but a small price to pay for a great first impression. Darrell searched carefully as he walked, looking for a tall blade of grass to ceremoniously pull off and place between his teeth. But the grounds here were very well kept, which felt strange to him. He wondered why the leader of the free world would spend so much time or money clipping vegetation. It looked highly unprofessional. Better to let the grass do what the grass does. Some head administrator or leader was waiting for Clarence and Darrell, with a number of soldiers, guns raised.
"We got ourselves quite the hootenanny here, don't we, Darrell?"
"Mm-hmm," Darrell said as bolsterously as he could manage. Some military general spoke up. "That's far enough. Why are you two holding weapons?"
"This old thing,"
Darrell said, raising the shotgun barrel wildly as if drunk until the barrel was hanging over his shoulder.
"Well, these here is gifts for you folks."
The general was puzzled. Clarence set the base of his shotgun on the ground and looked straight down into the barrel as the normally stoked soldier's eyes grew wide.
"I don't think mine is... Oops. Yep, mine's loaded. Dang it, Darrell! I told you not to load the guns!"
The general cocked his head to the side, searching for words. "And where exactly are you two from?"
"Clarence and I are from Alpha Centauri. We got sick of waiting around for you folks to visit us, so we just shuttled on over. We'd give you our real names, but I don't think you could pronounce them right."
"And you've been here how long?" the general asked.
"Us? Oh boy. Been here at least 50 Earth years, maybe more. Here, we brought you gifts. We don't got any grandfathers or great-grandfathers who can hand down guns to us, but we know it's a symbol of goodwill to hand off a family gun. So we stole these from... hell. What was his name again, Clarence? Jim Bob, I think. I can't remember. Boy, we had fun with him. He died of a heart attack when we sent in something like a cow from our home planet. Big slimy green beast with tentacles and such. We were just gonna show him the closest thing we got to cow tipping, but he up and died before we got the chance."
The general couldn't help but scoff. "So, why in the world? Where did you learn our language?"
"Where else?" Darrell said. "We went to the place where high society goes. I mean, y'all eat food, right? So y'all revere those who make the food. Unless they're sadists," Clarence cut in with a laugh. "I mean, back on Alpha Centauri, our world leader is a farmer. Head of agriculture. Like, what kind of culture would treat the poor working folk as anything but royalty? I mean, how else are they gonna eat if the farmers in the fields just up and revolt?"
But the reaction coming from the general made Clarence pause. Darrell and Clarence shared a knowing look.
"That would explain some things,"
Darrell said, shifting uncomfortably where he stood. Clarence looked down at his wrist like he was checking his non-existent watch.
"Look at the time. We'd better get going, Darrell? Gotta get back to that intergalactic meeting thing."
And the two aliens dropped their shotguns and went running full speed back into the spaceship to take off. Thinking another 50 years of abducting city folk should help them the next time they make a first impression. Hopefully after the general was long gone. I hope that their intergalactic meeting thing goes well. We have one final story for you today. Brap again reads for us. The prompt is Georgia, 1904. A minister awaits sundown at a crossroads, where he intends to confront the devil with an axe in hand and the word of God on his lips. This prompt is written by Ketova Dreams.
The crossroads stretched in each direction, and in the center stood Thaddeus Cantrell. Towards the north was a tree line that announced the border of the county. They were good folk up there, but the road they had to take was hard-packed dirt and well-traveled. Thaddeus knew the men who often went there were sorely in need of ministering to. The south and east both disappeared toward the horizon where the crops stretched towards the sky, begging for rain. There'd be a farmhouse or two every 100 miles with a God-fearing wife on each, but none of that concerned him. The west was what concerned him the most. The west was where good men went on a paved road to hell, where the cities were as ripe as a bloated tick for the devil to feast upon. Good children went and came back full of wickedness and sin. God-fearing fathers tried making a quick fortune, but more often than not, never came back. The west was where good morals went to die, and it all started at that damned crossroads, where he knew the devil was awaiting. "Ain't no carriages come through here no more," a man said from behind him. Thaddeus turned and saw a young man, barely 16, with a pack slung to his back and a straw hat balanced on his head. The boy settled his weight upon a walking cane, and then glanced down at the axe the minister had propped against his leg. His eyes darted back to the man's face and smiled. "I mean you no harm, boy," Thaddeus said. "Best be on your way back home. I'm betting there are still chores to be done, and you don't want to keep your mama waiting." "Oh, I ain't going home," the boy said. "Name's Bill, but all my friends call me Bub." It was Thaddeus's turn to look surprised. He took into account the rags the boy wore, which draped over his thin frame like a scarecrow, and his shoes which looked like they'd been patched together and passed down a near dozen times. Still, there was a sense of charisma about the child, an innocence that would quickly be corrupted. "You run off?" Thaddeus asked. Bub shrugged and settled his pack upon the ground. "Ain't no life for me back there." "Better than the iniquities that await you west of here," Thaddeus said. Bub nodded, if only to agree, and again alighted his eyes upon the axe. Thaddeus followed his gaze and raised the axe to face level. Then he smiled. "It's of no concern to you, boy," Thaddeus said. "I'm waiting for someone, and I'll know him when I see him." "Well, I didn't pass no one out here," Bub said. "You might be waiting a long time. This person, Z's some sort of trouble?" Thaddeus nodded. "For a spell." "And you gonna set him right?" Bub asked. "God willing," Thaddeus said. "What sort of wrong this fella do to a man like you?" Bub asked. "I seen you around some. You're the man preaching to others about doing no wrong and the sort. This feels a bit contrary, if you ask me." "Oh, this ain't no man I'm waiting for," Thaddeus grinned. "I aim to meet the devil himself and set him straight. Too many of our boys and men folk wander off and never come back. A shepherd's got to protect his flock, don't he?" Bub nodded some and set the strap back upon his back. The sun had set while they spoke, and a calm hush filled the air. In moments, the moon would be up and the night creatures out and about. But for now, there was a gentle sort of quiet. "You look parched," Bub finally said. "I think I got a shot of fire in here somewhere you can wet your lips on. You game?" Thaddeus nodded and set the axe at his feet while Bub fished through his pack. He brought out a mason jar filled with liquid that sloshed when he passed it over. The minister took a deep swallow, winced, and passed the jar back. "Thank you," Thaddeus said. "Been a while since I had something, and your kindness won't be soon forgotten." "Ain't no worry. Maybe you can repay me someday with an equal favor, Bub smiled. No harm, preacher man. But you think your little wood poker's gonna do the job? The devil ain't exactly a cord of wood. I have the word of the Lord, Thaddeus said. Bub passed back the jar from which the preacher took another long swallow. I knew I had you pegged for drinking, man, Bub said. You think you'll recognize him when he comes on by? He brushed the sweat from his head with his free hand and picked up his stick. Might be I will, Thaddeus said. Might be I won't. I have to try either way. You're a good man, preacher. Shame to have you sit out here all this time all dressed up for a party that ain't never gonna happen, Bub said. I hope you find what you're looking for one day, but I think you're wasting your time. I hear the devil's a sneaky old trickster who won't be that easily caught by a man with a stick. Just remember, don't ever owe the devil nothing. I don't intend to. You heading west, boy? Thaddeus said as the boy started off along the paved road. I still say you're better going off home, but if you see the devil, you send him my way. I'll be here waiting. I'll let him know, Bub called out and grinned. Then a few paces more when he was out of hearing range, he added, But I won't be back this way for some time.
That's our show for today, folks. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Prompted. If you're listening to this on iTunes or YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment. It helps the algorithms boost our podcast up a little bit. If you really liked it, mosey on over to our subreddit, prompted.reddit.com, and subscribe, and you'll get all of the latest updates and news regarding the podcast. And as always, good words, good writing.